Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Kurt Leavins. Welcome, Kurt.
Hey, Dave, we've got hockey players on the ice. After a summer of podcasts of just wishing about hockey season, it's finally here.
And there was the two rookie games this past weekend against the Flames prospects. Kurt, I really enjoyed them both. I enjoyed those prospect games as much as I've enjoyed prospect games in a lot, like maybe since Hope was on the prospect team, Pyarvi and Hall and Everly. I think they had games back then. If I'm not, I know Pyarvi played in such a game. I have a memory of that. I think it's a long time ago, but I do think he did play in Kelowna. Maybe it was in the Okanagan even then with Pyarvi. But anyway, that was very enjoyable hockey. We saw a lot of prospects. We'll talk about those guys, Kurt. We'll talk briefly about the Oilers' goalie situation. An interesting name has come up as a possible acquisition. We'll talk about the press conference today with Stan Bowman and Chris Knobloch, and briefly about the McDavid situation again. So what did you think, Kurt? I wrote about the prospect series. Who stood out for you? Who did you like?
Well, I thought Matt Savoie was the best player on the ice for both teams in both games. It's difficult to really judge anything by a rookie game in terms of NHL rosters, but of all the Oilers, certainly he's the one guy that looks NHL ready based on the rookie games. Thoroughly impressed with him. He was what I thought he would be. Very pleased. So he's the guy who I thought stood out in a good way. I'm not disappointed in Beau Akey, and I know some people were kind of lukewarm on him. I'll say this.
Yeah.
What's that?
I think Bruce Kurlock was online. That's what I read.
Yeah. Well, I think what Bruce has to wake up and remember is that this kid's coming off a major injury and hasn't played any pro yet, right? So I mean, I think to me, Beau Akey looked exactly like a guy who needs a full year of AHL play. But I wasn't disappointed in what I saw. I like his toolbox. I think he could be a player down the road, but he just needs AHL time. And there's certainly no sin in that. But the other guy who I think needs AHL time, based on the rookie game, is Ike Howard. Now, that may change completely when we get into regular camp and he's playing with real NHL players. That can make a big difference. In those rookie games, there's usually a serious lack of structure, and you're not playing with that good of players. It's way different when you're in an actual NHL roster. So we'll see, but I thought he was underwhelming in both games.
So Ike Howard, it was funny. I just had this, the first time I saw him, this is the first time I've seen him play. And I had this vision, like I've seen suddenly it's like, he reminds me of Mike York. And then I looked it up. He's the almost exact same size as Mike York. They both played at Michigan State, and they both had similar scoring stats in college hockey. So Mike York had a fairly decent pro career as kind of a second line winger for, he had 3 or 4 really good seasons as a second line winger. Ike Howard, I agree with you, Kurt. I didn't see an NHL player. I saw someone who plays fast with the puck, makes good passes when he gets it, makes good plays when he gets the puck, and shoots it well when he gets the puck, but not fast enough on the back check, on forecheck, on the skating part of the game, on the thinking part of the game. He's got to speed it up. He's got to pick up his tempo.
Yeah, I saw Savoie making NHL decisions, and I didn't see that from Howard. And hey, that can be corrected. Go play pro for a year or part of a year, and then see how you're doing. But that's the difference I would draw between all 3 of those players. Akey and Howard need to play against men for a half a year or a full year, where it looked, based on the rookie game at least, that Savoie was playing like an NHL player.
That's a good point about playing against men. So I agree. I liked Akey too. I thought he played a smart and safe game, which I really liked. I thought he was pretty good just moving the puck and skating with the puck. The Oilers placed a big emphasis on that, and he's got those abilities. So he obviously needs a year or 2 in Bakersfield. But the playing with men thing, I noticed like both Savoie and Viljami Marjala, the Finnish player, who's a year older than Ike Howard, Marjala was way better in these games than Ike Howard.
Yeah, I agree.
And what I don't know about him is this: he was so good. He's so smart. He's silky smooth with the puck. He's calm with the puck and holds it just long enough to make a really nice pass. And he was reminiscent of, and this is a way huge overreach, but just stylistically, Igor Larionov, a smaller player who played a really smart game moving the puck. So I don't know, is he Larionov at the AHL level, or can he approach anything like that at the NHL level? But I am convinced, having seen him, that he's an NHL prospect. I think he's also going to go to the AHL, but a player that smart and skilled, he was getting it done defensively, Kurt, and on the forecheck. He was angling people on defense and taking pucks off them. And I thought, oh, yeah, he has a chance to play in the NHL.
Yeah, he's listed as 6 feet, but I saw him play bigger than that, right? And so who knows, once he goes from playing against, half a roster of AHL guys and half a roster of junior and college grads to real NHL players. But he caught my eye as well, and certainly a guy worth watching, and he over-delivered on my expectations, I would say.
Yeah, easily. Matt Savoie reminded me of a small version of Zach Hyman. He was flying out there on the forecheck, taking hits to make plays. The second game, they were down a goal. He comes charging down the wing in the last minute, takes a monster hit, but centers the puck to Howard for a one-timer. Yeah. He was doing that all the time, making those tough passes under pressure. He's just got that relentlessness and ability to make some plays that Hyman has. I thought he was good in his 4-game audition last year with the Oilers. He looked like he had NHL skill. Yep. He is smaller, but apparently he's put on some weight and some strength this summer. So, if you're 5'9" and you're 160, you're in trouble. But if you're 5'9" and you're 190, and all of that difference is muscle in your legs and thighs and butt, you can play in the NHL. And if you have that solid base, and I don't know about that, but he does look like that kind of, he's getting thicker as a player, so he's got a chance. What about the goalies, Kurt? Do you have a point?
Well, my final point on that before we talk about the goalies was, it seems abundantly clear to me that Beau Akey aside, there are no real D prospects.
What about Carfagna, Damian Carfagna?
I just thought he was just okay. I thought Akey's the only guy out there who I thought might play in the NHL someday, and 4 of those guys just were. That was the difference in both games, is that the Oilers rookies D-men were just totally overmatched in both games.
Well, I don't have anything nice to say about the bottom end players on the Oilers roster, so I will say nothing at all. What did you think of the goalies, Kurt Johnson and Nathaniel Day?
I thought Johnson difficult to judge because he was just peppered in his 40-some minutes. I didn't think he got any help, so I'm going to kind of hold my decision there. I certainly didn't blame anything on him. Nathaniel Day impressed me, actually. He looked like a goaltender, coincidentally enough, who's used to facing a lot of rubber. Of course, he did, like in Flint, right, all last year. Faced a lot of pucks, stopped a lot of pucks. He was better than I thought he would be. I don't think either goaltender is going to be, winning a Stanley Cup with the Oilers in the next 2-3 years, but I thought they were both fine, and Day probably overperformed my expectations.
I thought Day looked really good, and he made some massive saves. So did Johnson. I mean, he let in some more iffy goals than did Day, but both of them made some really big saves. Both of them are great big guys who move well in the net. I was particularly impressed with 2 things with Day: the way he squares up to the puck, and the way when the puck was in tight with him, the way he was able to smother it or direct it into the corners. I thought his handling of the puck in tight was superior to Johnson's ability in the same area. And to me, he might have, just based on one game, which is nothing, he moved a little bit ahead. But those are two decent goalie prospects, it looked to me. So that was encouraging.
And Johnson's a big man, hey?
They both are. Yeah, they're both like 6'4", aren't they? Like they're big, and Johnson might be even heavier than Day.
Yeah, Johnson's listed at 6'5", 204. So that's a big goalie.
Hey, we're talking goalies, so let's segue to goalies. Stuart Skinner arrives at camp. Apparently, last year on the training camp roster, he was 6'4", 230. Now he's 6'4", 205. So, Kurt, 25 pounds is a lot to lose, and it's being met with applause because what we saw last year in Skinner was a goalie who seemed to struggle with agility issues, getting across the net, moving fast across the net, keeping his balance. So if he's kept his strength, if he's improved his agility and his flexibility to move a little quicker, I mean, he's already a really good goalie. If he picks it up a notch, that could be really good news.
I would also argue he's had a bit of issue the last couple of years with endurance. And part of that will be addressed by just being around longer, getting your reps and knowing, how to conduct yourself, conserve energy and all that kind of good stuff. But if you're a little bit lighter and you have a little less to carry around, over the long run, maybe that helps you and you don't tire out as much as he appeared to at times over the last 2 seasons. A lot of people were criticizing the Oilers, and I think fairly so, about doing nothing different with their goaltending. Well, 2 things are different. They did bring in a brand new coach for the goaltenders who seems to have a brand new approach, and their goaltender really had an offseason different from the previous ones. So they didn't just stand pat. Both goaltender and organization did something different. Whether or not that'll be enough or not, we'll see. But certainly good first impressions.
Think about what Stu Skinner has on the line here. I mean, millions and millions and millions of dollars are on the line for him to reach out. If he could have a big year, like it could mean $30 million, $40 million difference to Stuart Skinner.
He could end up on Team Canada. Like he literally could. If he has a great start to the season, he could end up on the roster, or he could, end up getting traded. It's a something or nothing season for him almost.
They say dieting doesn't work, but when you have like 30 or $40 million on the line, I think dieting can work fairly effectively.
It's good motivation. I can lose 25 pounds for that much money too.
Most people could, I think. Yeah, the $40 million diet, it's called. Yeah, it works 90% of the time. It's the best diet ever invented. So there's a couple players who have come up as possibilities for the Oilers to sign. People have been talking a lot about Carter Hart all summer long, who was recently, wasn't just acquitted, Kurt. Like the judge actually found as a matter of fact that the sex was consensual. And I think that's really important to say because there's still a cloud over these players. But if you read the judge's ruling, man, the players were exonerated. They were factually found innocent, and that needs to be said. Anyway, he's a free agent, and he's a really good goalie, good young goalie from this area. And Connor Ingram, who had 2 years of .907 save percentages, and then had a bad year last year. He went down to 880 or something like that, and was in the program. I'm not sure if it was drug or alcohol related that he was in the program for.
But it was the NHL assistance program one way or the other, right? So
correct. Yeah, we don't know exactly the nature of it. It might not even be substance abuse. I'm not sure. So check that fact. But so he's also, they're not keeping him in Utah, and they're looking to trade him or put him on waivers. What do you now with Hart? Before the verdict came out in his trial, there was a kind of a Jason Gregor put out saying that the Oilers weren't interested in him, whether he was found. No matter the verdict in the trial, they just weren't interested. Stan Bowman today, what did he say about Carter Hart?
He said that they weren't interested in going in that direction, and I read into that it was primarily because they wanted to see what their 2 existing goaltenders could do, and I think they have a level of belief in Stuart Skinner, and they're going to see how that goes. I wrote this past week how I thought that it was important that the Oilers did due diligence on this guy. I believe they did indeed do that. Then they decided we're not going there. And that's really all I was demanding of the general manager was, you have to consider this. I think the general manager's job is to turn over every stone in order to turn his team into a Stanley Cup competitor. And if he did that and decided to walk away, hey, I'm fine with that. As I pointed out in the article, this was an imperfect goaltender who had 2 imperfect seasons, then hasn't played for almost 2 complete years. He's far from a sure thing. And if a veteran GM like Stan Bowman says he ain't our guy, then okay, that's fine. So that's my take on Carter Hart. And just briefly, I agree with you. Look, people are entitled to their opinion on this guy. I'm not stopping you from having your opinion, but I think both you and I have covered a lot of court cases over the years. The fact of the matter is, he was exonerated in a court of law, and at some point, I think he deserves to earn a living again. And people say, well, he has to pay a price. Well, he's missed 2 years of professional hockey plus, and serious injury to his reputation as well. People may say that's deserved. Okay, that's your opinion too. But, he certainly did pay a price for that whole thing. But I think, most people, unless they've been convicted of a heinous crime, deserve a second chance, and I think he does too. It's just not going to be here, and apparently it's not going to be in Philadelphia either.
Yeah, it's good if the Oilers have looked into it, that's what they should. He's doing his job, and so I just Bowman said the one thing I didn't quite like about his statement today is he said they like Skinner and they want to go with Skinner. He identified goaltending as a need at the start of the summer, and fans have been pushing way before then for a change in net. I think that his answer wasn't good enough. Like he did talk about we're looking to improve every position. He did keep that on the table. The focus might have been in the answer, we're still looking to improve this position. He's not our guy for a number of reasons. He could even say I'm not going to get into them, but and I think they should be looking at Connor Ingram. And again, you don't know what his situation is, but that was a goalie who had two pretty good years in a row, and fell off, possibly related to his problems. Who knows? Again, that's a situation you got to dig into deeply. But and people don't want to hear this, but because there's some major big Calvin Pickard fans out there. People love this player. I really like this player too. I love Calvin Pickard, but I do think bring in someone who can challenge for the starting job, and I don't think that's Calvin Pickard. So I still think they need to bring in another goalie, and if maybe it's Ingram. He's a very promising player. I'm not sure what his contract situation is. What do you think of Ingram, Kurt? Have you given it much thought, or?
Look, I kind of hate to have harsh criticism of a guy who's going through a tough time and is trying to pick himself up and dust himself off. I respect him trying to work through that, but I wonder if that doesn't mean danger signs for the Oilers. I don't disagree with folks who say the Oilers need to address their goaltending. My take, and I think I said this last year, and at the end of the year and around free agency as well, if you're going to improve on the goaltending, get someone better than Stuart Skinner. I don't think you're fixing anything by getting somebody better than Calvin Pickard.
Ingram makes $1.95 million this year against the cap, and he's a UFA after this season. So he's more expensive than Calvin Pickard, and the Oilers they'd have to do some juggling to fit him under the cap if they decided he was the answer or the right guy.
I guess if you're really holding my feet to the fire, Dave, I don't think he makes you that better enough to be worth it.
Maybe not. I mean, Pickard played well in the playoffs. He's a great backup goalie. Maybe Bowman is now saying maybe they're so impressed with how Skinner's looking and moving that they really think, okay, let's see how this goes 2 months and then we'll decide. And and we can make a call then. But it's, Ingram's a real NHL goalie. He has been 2 out of the
Or at
last
least
3
he
years.
was. Yeah.
He was before his issues, so we'll see. Anyway.
Well, at the end of the day, they went into the summer knowing that there was a thin goaltender market. That didn't magically change over the summer.
No.
I think back in the playoffs, we were saying the only way to really upgrade at goaltending is to make a hockey trade. And I think Stan Bowman goes into that this season knowing that. By Christmas, if Stuart Skinner isn't the guy, I think you have to make a hockey trade because there isn't another goaltender better than Stuart Skinner just hanging out there available.
Matthias Janmark for Connor Ingram. All right. Kurt, press conferences today with Stan Bowman and Chris Knobloch. Let's start. What did the GM have to say about Zach Hyman?
He signaled that Zach Hyman's rehabilitation was going well, but that he was not going to start training camp with the regular team. But Stan Bowman more or less said, but I'm not really concerned about that. He said, everything is going as planned. The rehabilitation is fine. And I'm not worried about Zach Hyman. He came right out and said that. What I read into that was that he probably won't play a preseason game, and he might not play the first few, at least, regular season games. But it sounds like in its abundance of caution that they're going at this with. When you listen to the player instead of the general manager, the player basically says it's a rehabilitation issue now. It's a strength issue now. It's healed. You've got to get the strength back. He's skating, so his cardio will be close. He just has to rehab that hand. But Zach Hyman is not wearing a brace anymore. That was good news. That he was skating on his own is good news. He expects to be fully practicing with the team by the end of training camp. So that's what we got from Bowman and Hyman.
I'm not worried if he's out for a while. Take your time. It's a long season. And listen, the Oilers have some players they need to see if they can play. And in some ways, chief among them, I think, is David Tomasek, signed for $1.2 million a year. He's 29 years old. He's been a top scorer in the Swedish league 2 years in a row. He was kind of a slow developer as a pro. Took a long time. He was 24, 25, I think, before he got going. And then he really got going in the last few years. Bowman gave him an absolutely rave review on Oilers Now, just talking about watching him at the captain's skates and, he said you could only put so much into that, but it was a rave review. Like, wow, who is that guy making these plays? Like, just someone who can really make plays, offensive plays, has a great understanding of the offensive game. I think it would be really interesting if Tomasek is going to make it. I don't think it's on the third line or the fourth line. I could be wrong about that, but he just strikes me as he's a top line offensive hockey player. So, and Bowman called him the best offensive hockey player in Europe last year. I'd love to see him get some games, certainly in exhibition and early in the regular season with McDavid or Draisaitl. Knobloch talked about caution, about the idea of playing Savoie or Howard up top too early, because if you bump them down, that they could see that as a big blow. It can set them back, their development. He said, you want to work up to that. Maybe by December, maybe by the end of the year or the playoffs, they'll be ready for that kind of role. But he was strongly favoring slow cooking those two guys. I don't think that applies to Tomasek. He's 29. It's now or never. Let's see what he's got. So if Hyman's out, that's the player I'm hoping to see get some minutes in the top six.
Well, I'm all for seeing him get that opportunity in training camp. That's what it's for. Why else are we playing 8 bloody games? Right. So I'm all for that.
Yeah.
So the other thing about Tomasek, before I move on to the two younger guys, is he's bigger and thicker than I thought he'd be. Like he's got man strength. So it will be interesting to see how his skills convert to the NHLA surfaces in the NHL game. In terms of lines, I think they'll try all sorts of combinations in preseason, so we probably can't read too much into it. I will be surprised if Savoie doesn't get a shot up top. And by top, I mean with McDavid, at least some of the time in training camp. I think that Savoie could stick as a fourth line guy in this team because of his defensive awareness and his defensive abilities. I think he has the ability to play fourth line NHL hockey and do some PK work. I feel differently about Ike Howard. Even if he really turns it on in camp, I think he's a top 6/top 9 player. And unless there's a slot for him in the top 6, it might make more sense for him to start in the AHL. He's not extremely strong defensively. He's not a penalty killer. So I think the number of roster spots available for him are fewer. So that's how I see those three players, at least.
I see Howard, Tomasek and Howard fighting for the same position. I don't like in a could Tomasek play on the fourth line? It's probably more of a possibility he could do that than Howard could.
Agreed.
So it just sounds like to me, I'm getting and we'll see it. Everything changes fast, but Tomasek seems to have taken a kind of a leap up in everyone's status, how they're looking at the player. I think Savoie, so the coach Chris Knobloch talked about having a checking line, a strong checking line, aggressive players. I actually think Savoie is a strong enough two-way hockey player to play on that. He killed penalties. He was a strong two-way player in the AHL level. He can really check. I think a checking line of Podkolzin, Frederic, and Savoie might be a really interesting combination. Kapanen will also battle for that job. Curtis Lazar and Noah Philp, who I have as the fourth line, starting out Philp, Lazar, and Kapanen. They would all also be candidates for that role. But if they want to go slow with Savoie, I think that might be a role to start out in, where his focus will be on forechecking and backchecking and making plays. Not a lot expected on the attack. Just do your job, and he can do that for a couple months. See how it goes. What do you think?
Well, I get the sense that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is going to be a centerman this year. And if that's the case, he'll be a third line center. So if you put Nuge at third line center, and you're looking for, defensive wingers along with him, well, then I guess I start to see the possibilities. I think that maybe a guy like the kid could play on that line. I think it's even more likely that Trent Frederic would be on that line. So if you have, Nugent Hopkins, Frederic, and Savoie, I can think of a way worse player to start your NHL career with for Matt Savoie than Ryan Nugent Hopkins. Here's my issue is, do they want a defensive line or do they want a heavier line? And when I'm trying to listen carefully to the language that both the general manager and the coach are using, my sense is they're as much looking for a heavier line as they are a defensive one. Then I think your options really drop, because I don't think Savoie does fit that mold.
Correct.
And I do think that the kid we got from Boston fits that mold, but I also don't think Ryan Nugent-Hopkins fits it. So it's all the talk about that third line was interesting, but I kind of got mixed messages over what that line would be. So.
Kurt, Knobloch was really stressing giving Frederic the first run at that job. Like, he's going to be the third line center in training camp, and Knobloch made that clear. Now that could change.
But he also mentioned the possibility of him playing up in one of the top two lines, because he'd never got an opportunity to do that in his career before.
He did. So he said he's not wedded to anything. He's going to see how it works. But Frederic it sounds like first, that's the first idea, is to play him there. So we don't know if that'll last or not. And you're right. If it's RNH, like if it's a heavy line, Philp is a big guy and he's heavy. And if he can start to play a heavy game, Kapanen played a fairly heavy game in the playoffs. So it could be like Kapanen, Frederic, and Podkolzin. That would be a fairly bigger, heavier line. I think both Frederic and Podkolzin could work their way into the top 6, but I'm betting they're going to start on a checking line. And that'll be this heavy line with both of them on it. Maybe Frederic on the wing. Maybe Philp at center. We'll see how quickly, if Philp really takes a leap. And I think he's a really good player. I like the way he played for the Oilers when he was up. I thought he fit in just fine. It's a big leap to suddenly be the third line center. So not likely, but it would be a possibility. Of course, there's Janmark. Still Janmark's on the team, and I'm not feeling it, Kurt.
Yeah, I don't know where he fits.
Yeah,
Firstly, to your point on Podkolzin, I don't disagree with you that he's the right player type for that third line left winger, but I think he's going to play with Leon Draisaitl all day.
Probably. Maybe.
So I agree with your observation. I just don't think he's going there. And as for Janmark, yeah, you know what? I have some time for Matthias Janmark. He's still a real NHL player. He moves better than anybody gives him credit for. He's a decent PK guy, smart hockey player. I'm just having a hard time figuring out where he fits on this roster. Maybe he's your 13th forward.
He is. He earns about $300,000 too much for, and they're counting every penny. So we'll see what happens there.
Yep.
Now the GM also talked about, and the coach a little bit, I think, Walman and Nurse. What are we hearing there, Kurt?
Yeah. What he didn't spend much time on, but he basically came out and said that it's going to be Ekholm Bouchard again on the top pairing, because I know you and I had discussed that a couple of podcasts back. So that's how they're going to start that, at least. And both head coach, general manager, and Jake Walman have all said he's going to be the second pairing right D on this team. He's going to play with Darnell Nurse. That's at least how it's going to start. And given the agreement of all three parties, my sense is they're not just going to try it for a game or two.
Yes.
And the comment, which I think is fair, is that they're going to put Walman on the right side and leave him there for a while. And I think Walman's request was, look, I'm happy to play either side, but can you kind of put me on one side and leave me there? Which I think is what other players have said to the Oilers. Brett Kulak was a good soldier and went and played the right side for a while last year and ended up doing a pretty good job of it. But I think he said, put me one place or the other, and I can tell from having played defense and decent hockey, it is tough going back and forth between one or the other. Based on a relatively small sample size, we did see Walman good with Nurse and vice versa. There's fallbacks if this doesn't work, but given that Jake Walman looks like a top four defenseman, and he's probably going to get an extension that says he's a top four defenseman, well, then give him top 4 minutes, right? So I think this makes good sense.
I mean, after Evan Bouchard, when you're looking at right-hand defensemen on the team, it's pretty thin. Like there's Stetcher, Emberson, Regula, Akey, and Brown.
They're all kind of third pairing guys or less.
They need Jake Walman over there is the other thing. You'd have to move someone else. And I don't know if Atro Lepinen plays the off wing or not. Kulak doesn't really, they could always go back to that, I guess. But no, it sounds like Walman's there. He's happy to be there. So they're going to go with that. And we'll see. That could be like, if Ekholm's healthy, and if again, Nurse played really well last season during the regular season, not in the playoffs.
Yep.
That top four could be just like the best top four in the NHL. And fingers crossed. I mean, Bouchard followed by Walman as your right side defenseman. That's outstanding. I mean, you have a top 25 player in the NHL, and Walman, who's I think he's a really good defenseman. So.
And on his offside in the offensive zone, I see real positives, real possibilities there.
Yeah. All right. Let's just finish up. I think the last thing on the agenda is just a quick discussion about what McDavid said to
Elliotte Friedman.
Elliotte Friedman and Kyle Bukauskas on the 32 Thoughts podcast. Quote from McDavid: I have all the faith in the world in this 25-26 season, and beyond that still remains to be seen. We have time. It's our decision. Basically, we've earned that, and we're going to take our time with it. So that had some people really super worried, Kurt. I think my sense is that some people didn't take McDavid's, they just thought it was locked up, that there was just no chance he would leave. And when he says anything about the possibility that he's actually considering all options, now they're hearing that and it's like shocking them a little bit that he actually is doing that. I'm not shocked by it. I think it's part of his process. I think it's part of the proper process of negotiating such a major contract is to look at all options. And he's just stating the obvious. But there was quite a reaction last night on the internet to this. People got really worried about this statement from McDavid. I mean, today we heard from Draisaitl, just very confident McDavid's going to sign here. Today we heard from Bob Stauffer, extremely Mr. 102% that McDavid's signing here. It does seem like people who know McDavid well are super confident he's going to do it. It also seems like McDavid is super determined to go through this process in a very orderly, methodical way, where he doesn't have his mind made up before it starts, but goes through it slowly, takes in all the information, lets it sink in, and then makes up his mind. And I don't find that upsetting I got my head around that a while ago, and I don't find it upsetting. So that's what's happening. How do you see it?
A few things. First of all, I do get why fans are worried and concerned. I understand that. If you love the hockey team and you love this player, why wouldn't you be concerned if you think there's a chance he might leave? So I understand that. As I've said before, I'll say again, he has earned the right to do this, one. And two, I think it's a sign of the quality of the person. He's not just going to flippantly go through this whole process. He's going to take his time and do it properly, like everything else Connor McDavid does. He's going to go through it and do it properly. So I think that's something that, if you can get your head around it, I think it's something that you can admire. And so that's what I see there. I have said, and I stand by, I still think he's going to sign before the regular season. I think it'll be a 3-year deal. I think it'll be about $15 million. Is there a chance that he doesn't sign? Yeah, but I don't feel any less confident about it now than I did before. But I will restate one thing that I did say when you and I were doing our podcast last week. You saw how noisy it was today. And I said to a friend of mine tonight, I said, boy, I thought Stan Bowman was really great today. Unfortunately for him, it's only going to get noisier until Connor makes a decision. And it's gonna. And I don't.
And the team.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if they have underestimated just how noisy it can get. I won't relitigate that point all over again. I made that point last week, but I saw evidence of it today, and there's more of this to come. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, we already had a chant in the Calgary arena, McDavid is leaving, McDavid is leaving. That's just every rink is going to be doing that. So
McDavid will hear it. His teammates will hear it. Oilers fans will hear it.
Yeah.
The visiting media will ask about it. Like it's not going to go away, and they're kidding themselves if they think this is going to just be a part of doing business. I know they're professionals. I got a lot of respect for them, but this ain't that.
Yeah, it's going to get super noisy. Anyway, I'm expecting a deal fairly soon too. I mean, when Bowman talked about when he might sign, it was like 2 weeks from now, or the next day, or the next day after that. It was like it was a very little short.
Yeah.
It was very short.
Both him and Leon, right?
Of when he expected that to happen. So that was really interesting. Although I think McDavid doesn't like that people are saying that. Like he made a comment about like some people think they know what's going to happen, and I guess they didn't know. So he's very determined to have his process and do that process correctly. So more power to you, Connor McDavid. Do that process.
I'll throw in this. In his situation, what's he gonna say? And you have to know that his agent has coached him on this. Don't show your cards. And if any of us were in a negotiation, let's call it that, in our own lives, even approaching that size, we wouldn't show our cards, nor would we tell anybody else to. Right?
You can't even imagine it, Kurt. Like none of us have negotiated. Well, maybe you have like business contracts that big. I don't know, but
not that big. I've been a part of 7-figure deals, But for most people, I've made this point before, for most people, the biggest financial decision you'll ever make is a mortgage.
Yes.
And you don't just walk into your banker and go, whatever. Right?
No, people like sweat over that, and like, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
massive decision, and like small fractions of interest percentage points on your loan
Yeah.
make a big difference.
This guy is deciding his future home for the next few years, where his wife is going to live and do business, if they have a family, where their kids are going to grow up and go to school. Those are big damn decisions. And if I was in his shoes, I'd be taking my time too. I want him to sign yesterday, but I understand why he's taking a very careful approach to this.
Yeah. I would be less sanguine at all if all the insiders weren't saying that he is going to sign here. So that's why I'm so happy, go through the process, because it sounds like it's going to turn out well. I admit that I would not be so calm about it if I thought there was a significant chance that he was leaving. But anyway, Kurt, let's leave it there. We got there's not a game actually for a while. Is there one? Is it Sunday?
Sunday is the home and home against the Flames.
Okay. Oh, both. Okay. 2 games one day. All right.
Oilers A and Oilers B.
Okay. Kurt, thanks for talking tonight.
My pleasure.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.